guys, welcome to Hip Hughes History. We're hitting up the American Revolution in the next, I don't know how many minutes because I don't plan anything. But we're going to hit the big ideas, get...
Just kidding.
Yes, my name is Phineas Allen and I am a Continental soldier. Fought alongside some good men, and we had a very good leader in George Washington, as well as some other fantastic generals. But it's very good to be here. Very good indeed, youngsters. And I'm happy that your teacher, Mr. Rhodes, invited me. So let's get started.
Yeah, Phineas, the question that I have is, to start off with, is what do you think the most important step or steps were that led colonists to revolution?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. I think there's a little gap in a couple centuries of communication with this time travel stuff. Oh, yes, steps to revolution. I think one of the biggest things that led us to revolution, and one of the starting points, was at the end of the French and Indian War, when the British king decided to implement the proclamation line of 1763. And that proclamation line said that no settlers were allowed to go west of the Appalachian Mountains. And at the end of the French and Indian War, the British colonies extended not only from the East Coast to the Appalachian Mountains, but from the East Coast to the Appalachian Mountains and beyond, all the way to the Mississippi River. But British policy said that colonists couldn't go west of the Appalachian Mountains. Now the British and their government said that, some of this was to protect the native lands that were there, but there are ulterior interests for the British. They wanted to keep an eastern market along the east coast of the United States, so they wanted to keep that trade market open. They didn't want a bunch of settlers flooding inland and causing a loss in trade value. They also wanted to control the fur trade, as the British not only implemented that imaginary line across those Appalachian Mountains, they also sent 10,000 regular soldiers to police that. And not only did they send 10,000 soldiers, but that also meant that the American colonists would be in charge of paying for all those soldiers. So how are they going to pay for all that stuff? They're going to implement new ways of getting revenue or money that is going to be furnished and given to the government through different taxes.
Phineas, what about writs of assistance? How big of a deal were they, and what were they?
Oh, assistance? Don't even get me started on writs of assistance. In your 21st century world, you probably have something called search warrants, and search warrants may allow the police or some authority to search a home, but on that search warrant they would have a very specific thing that they were searching, and they would have to abide by rules. But back in the writs of assistance days, let me tell you, if they suspected anybody of smuggling, they could come in and tear apart a house or a person's business, whether they were guilty or not, and it didn't matter. They didn't have to pay for any damages done to the house or to the property. They could just walk away, and again, that was regardless if they were innocent or guilty. They could do whatever they wanted, and this created a lot of tension between the colonists and the British authorities. And over time, one piece leads to another, and people start to get very angry and start to think about other ways around these.
Was there anything that the colonists could do to fight back?
Oh, yes, that is a fine question. How do we fight back? How did the early colonists fight back? Well, the early colonists, not everything happens on a battlefield right away, so when the British start passing these new acts or these new tax measures and people start to disagree with them, many people are going to either protest, and so that is protesting to the British authorities, making their voices heard, and some things will change, many things will not. The next thing is that many people will start to boycott British goods. So anything coming from the island of Great Britain and trying to be sold here, many people start to resist that and say, okay, we will buy elsewhere. Maybe we can get some smuggled goods if those smugglers haven't been caught and haven't been served with writs of assistance. But one of the good things that happens out of all of that is many people in the American colonies start to produce their own goods so that they don't have to rely on these British goods that are sent overseas and into the colonies. So everything from homespun clothes are now created. We start to create our own American fashion, and even coffee. Coffee becomes a new thing in the colonies because people start to boycott tea. So what could be for you guys in the 21st century, you guys may say, wow, tea could have been very popular at one time here, but because this incident happened and people start to boycott tea, coffee becomes the favorite drink in the American colonies. And I would say that was a pretty good choice, not to continue on drinking that dirty British tea. I sure was glad when we moved away from that garbage tea, and eventually when we threw it into the Boston Harbor. Coffee is a much better drink, as Mr. Thomas Jefferson once said, it is the favorite beverage of the civilized world.
Were there any active organizations who protested or boycotted?
Oh, that is a very good follow-up question. Yeah, when we talk of boycotts and joining organizations, some of the organizations that are very strong and very patriotic and really wanted to head into a revolution and lead this revolutionary cause, I can think of one. There is no more noble and great organization than the Sons of Liberty. They organize protests and boycotts.
How difficult was it when British soldiers came and occupied Boston?
Oh yes, when I think of those early days in Boston, it's really hard to think about all of those red-coated soldiers occupying the city. When they were stationed in Boston, not only were they stationed there, you felt like you were under guard all the time, but they also took away jobs from others, because when they were off duty, they would sometimes look for employment elsewhere to make some extra money, and so some colonists felt very unhappy about this arrangement because sometimes it cost them jobs, and sometimes they would work for lower wages. So people were unhappy about that. These soldiers also needed to be quartered, and sometimes people were demanded that, hey, you need to put this soldier up in your home, and you need to take care of them, you give them a place to sleep and feed them. And the Quartering Act made people very disgusted. And so over time, I look back and I think those are some dark days. I'm so glad that you guys get to enjoy American independence all these years later. But for me, when I go back and I think about those early moments and all these British soldiers overtaking the city, sometimes I still can't stand the sight of red. And it just kind of triggers me that those redcoats, lobster back! You scoundrel, lobster back!
Oh, Phineas, don't get sidetracked. Come back. Tell us about the tax collectors.
Oh yes, the people who collected taxes, very, very despised. Those little rascals, sometimes they'd round them up and even tar and feather them. Terrible thing. Really terrible, actually. You're dumping tar and then you dump feathers on them and you don't recover from that real quickly.
Yeah, Phineas, is there anything in closing that you would like to tell the students at Lewistown Junior High?
Oh, in closing, I would like to say this. I just want all you students to remember Independence Day, value Independence Day, value the hardships that we overcame as a young colonial society that turned into a young nation that still perseveres for you guys in the 21st century. I'd also, say this, 4th of July, next time you get to your next 4th of July celebration, celebrate it, have the barbecue, have the fireworks, go to the parade, all wonderful things, but know why you're celebrating it, and know the steps that it took to get to the revolution itself, and then as you guys continue your studies of the revolution, understand those hardships that were overcome by the Continental soldiers, ultimately to gain victory, and even more so to gain that valuable independence. It's a wonderful thing. I'd also like to just give a plug for your teacher, Mr. Rhodes, and I hate to embarrass him right now, but he really is a good man, he's a kind man, he's a reasonable man, and he's just a wonderful human being, and I know he appreciates all of you guys showing up every day and getting your work done and working hard for them. So that's a real good thing. Those are good traits to have. So keep up the good work, everyone. Keep up the good work, Mr. Rhodes. Sorry if I embarrassed you there, but that's okay. Anyway, to all, I say farewell. Back through the time portal.